Yo. So I got a question. And before you answer, I want you to think about it for 1 second. Who was the best R&B group of the 90s? Not your favorite, not the one you grew up listening to, the best. And this is where the problem starts. Because the second you ask that question, everybody has a different answer. Somebody's going to say Joedeci. Somebody's going to say Boyz II Men. Then TLC, SWV, Dru Hill, Blackstreet, 112, Jagged Edge, Xscape, Toni. Then somebody says New Edition, and now everybody starts arguing whether they even count for the 90s. And before you know it, nobody agrees on anything. And honestly, I think that's what made the 90s different. Every group had an argument. Take Joedeci. A lot of people don't realize that Joedeci wasn't just a group, they were the entire image. They changed how male R&B artists looked. Before them, everybody was polished, clean cut, right? Then Joedeci shows up dressed like they could fight the entire event. Leather on, boots on, shades, attitude. Half these groups that came after them owe Joedeci a thank you card. Then you got Boyz II Men. Let's be real. They looked 35 years old the day they came out. I didn't know how old they actually were. Them dudes came out looking like they already had mortgages and life insurance policies. But nobody cared, because once they started to sing, the convo changed. Then you got Dru Hill. And I want you to try this. I want you to ask 10 people about Dru Hill, and at least 7 of them will start to talk about Cisco before they even mention the group. That's how big Cisco got. Bro became a solo superstar while still being in a group. Who does that? Who else has ever done that too? Let me know in the comments. But most people leave a group and disappear. Cisco left and somehow became bigger than the group. Then you got 112. And I'm a 112 fan, but I don't care what anybody says. Being attached to Bad Boy Records during that run was like being drafted by the 96 Bulls. Everything around you was already hot. Puff was everywhere. Biggie was everywhere. The whole movement was on fire. And 112 benefited from that. It's not a knock. It's just good timing, right? I think so. Now you got Jagged Edge. Every Jagged Edge song sounded like somebody was either getting married, getting broken up with, or trying to stop somebody from leaving. They had no middle ground. Everything was relationship business. Jagged Edge had the soundtrack for half the arguments happening in America in the 90s. I can bet it. I can bet you. Then you got TLC. And TLC, I like TLC. They weren't just an R&B group. TLC was a game changer, a cultural movement. People copied the clothes, the hairstyles, the attitude, the look. They were bigger than their own music. Then you got Xscape. And some people know Candy more from reality TV than from the actual group. Imagine being in one of the biggest groups of the era, then becoming famous all over again 20 years later. Shout out to you, Candy. That's dope. Toni. Every time someone mentions them, Raphael Saadiq immediately enters the conversation. It's almost impossible to separate the group from his legacy. And you know what I think? I think nostalgia might be lying to us. I do. I think nostalgia might be lying to us sometimes. Because everybody remembers the stars, but people forget the competition. Imagine trying to become an R&B group in the 90s. Let's say you're 4 dudes that can sing. Cool. Now here's your competition. You gotta compete with Joedeci, Boyz II Men, Dru Hill, Blackstreet, Shy, Soul For Real, Silk, Jagged Edge. And that's just the male groups. You still got TLC, SWV, Xscape, Invo, Brownstone, Changing Faces, Total. The market was crowded. Crowded. There was no room for the average. And that's why when people say that the 90s were different, I don't think they're just talking about the music. I think they're talking about the competition. Everybody was trying to take somebody's spot. And another thing to notice is that back then, the groups actually looked different from each other. You could easily identify a group from across the room. Joedeci looked like Joedeci. Boyz II Men looked like Boyz II Men. Dru Hill look like Dru Hill? You see where I'm going with this. And today, half the artists got the same stylists, the same producers, the same social media strategy. And back then, they didn't. Back then, everybody was trying to stand out. Now, everybody's trying to fit in. And maybe that's why the era feels bigger than life nowadays, because every group had a personality. But let me ask y'all, how many people in here could actually name all 4 members of some of these groups? Because if we're being honest, half of y'all probably only know the lead singer. Everybody knows Cisco, Casey, JoJo, Wanye. Everybody knows Raphael Sadiq. But every great group had those members in the background holding everything together. And they never got the credit. Well, the credit that they probably wanted, right? Sometimes I think, like, how many arguments happen inside these groups that we don't know? You got 4 talented people, sometimes 5. Everybody thinks there's a star. Everybody wants more verses, more attention. Everybody wants more money. And somehow they're supposed to stay together for years. That's probably harder than making the music, which is why a lot of these artists and groups eventually break up or have members leave or do solo careers or drama BTS behind the scenes, right? Some groups did have better runs than others. Some stayed longer. Some had less drama. And some just completely fell apart. Some groups got remembered differently than they were at the time. For example, if you ask anybody under 25 about Dru Hill, a lot of them think Cisco first. Ask somebody who lived through it, they remember the group. That's 2 completely different perspectives. Time changes the story, and that's probably why this debate will never end, because everybody remembers the 90s different. The vocals, the fashion, the music videos, the dances, the concerts, the heartbreak. Some just remember who got them through high school or remember who got them through a breakup. So when someone says best group, they might not even be talking about music. They might be talking about the memories. And that's why you'll never get everybody to agree on this, because we're all grading different things and different artists. We forgot artists too. We didn't talk about So For Real, Shy, Total, High Five. And what exactly are we judging? Are we judging the vocals, the influence, the style, the longevity, the hits? Depending on what category we're using, the answer changes. And maybe that's why nobody can agree, but the 90s wasn't carried by one group. The 90s was carried by all of them. All that could sing, groups that could perform, groups that changed fashion, culture, groups that changed R&B forever. And I don't know if we'll ever see that many legendary groups at the same time again, so I'm putting this on y'all. One choice, one group, no top 3, no honorable mentions. Who was the greatest R&B group of the 90s? Let me know.